Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Do apologise for the lateness on this one. I sat down to record at my usual time and found myself feeling less than creative, shall we say. So, unfortunately this is a bit late, but we're here now. And here is just outside Boston Public Library, because I've been talking to one of my subscribers for a little while about the possibility of doing a build themed around Metro 2033 that I have been playing somewhat casually on the channel. And the premise there being that following nuclear war, a lot of people have taken shelter in the Moscow metro tunnels. And there's a lot of building up gone in there and settlements in all the stations, that sort of thing. So we thought it would be a fun thing to use as inspiration for, well, this build, in fact. So I've tried a few different stations, had a look in a few different places. Vault 88 was my first thought, but I really wasn't keen on the station down there. So we'll just take a quick look around and see what we've got to work with here. Yeah, I had a look at the one over by Hangman's Alley and a couple of other bits and pieces as well. They're either too big, or there's too much going on, or they're too small and there's not enough space to work with. So I've settled on this one. It's got a reasonable amount of potential. As always with Workbench Anywhere, it does have its shortcomings. There's a lot of stuff I can't get rid of. Those are the bodies of the super mutants that were previously inhabiting the place. That were scattered all over the platform, and I'm not sure how long they're going to take to disappear, to be honest. So hopefully they'll disappear from there eventually. If not, we'll just wall them off. Hopefully they won't teleport back into the main place. There's a few bits and pieces down here already, as you can see. I'm going to incorporate what we can into the build. Unfortunately, things like this, gore bags or whatever you want to call them, are somewhat difficult to scrap. There may be other mods that'll do it, but the ones I've got I haven't. Or won't, rather. So, first problem we encountered, the ceiling in here, as you can see, is quite low. So, placing objects is quite difficult. It's not so bad with sort of standard shack walls, that sort of thing, but the junk fences being that bit taller are a bit more problematic. However, we can pillar glitch, fortunately, so that does make life somewhat easier. This unfortunately doesn't work because the gore bag and the trolley there are getting in the way. That's one problem with using junk fences in here. The supports as well on the back of them massively narrow down the space you're left with after you've put them in. So I went for a workaround on that, and we're just going to kind of board this off. And I suspect that's kind of going to be a bit of a theme for this, blocking out and hiding some of the more obvious super mutant evidence. But it gives the place character, so I don't mind. So I'm going to set this as close as possible to the trolley there and leave as much space available around it as I can. And hopefully that will create a nice little corridor down here. So the premise with the Metro type build is that a lot of the building they've done in their stations uses the basis of what's already there, things like these posts, as a guide and start point, and turns cupboards and stuff like that into rooms, that sort of thing. And then everything else is just sort of built out of wood. More, if I remember rightly, towards sort of the plywood boards than the wood planking, but we're going to mix and match it a little bit anyway, keep things interesting. So for today, we're just going to focus on this top area, this sort of entrance area. There's quite a lot of work I want to do here. So we're going to, as I say, follow the lines of these pillars and sort of create separate rooms using those. It's going to be a guard post and some residential area for the individuals who will be manning it. Hopefully make the entrance a bit more secure. I actually had a bit of an oversight, as we'll see in a bit, that I thought might be a better option for the main door. But I'll have to test that out at some point in future. So here I'm working on what will become a turret emplacement. We'll peek through the gap in the walls. I had planned here to use the lines on the floor as a sort of guide, so I can line everything up. Unfortunately, they're not quite in a convenient place for that, so it's more a case of eyeballing it. There's quite a bit of trial and error going on, as per usual. See, from looking there, it's still a little bit too far forward for the post, which did surprise me actually, but there we go. So I was sinking it into the walls. I didn't actually have to use the rug glitch for that. A lot of the time I didn't really need to use it at all, which was quite good. It makes life considerably easier. Especially with the low ceilings, making the rug glitch difficult to do in some places. So we'll line up this other one. Nudge it this way a little bit, I think. There we go, yep. And now hopefully we've got a big enough gap for the turret to peek through. I do kind of like the rough and readiness of that. It's a little too uniform. We've got a gap at the bottom that needs block up there, so use a bit of corrugated metal for that. Boards rather than planks keep with the Metro vibe of it. Using the automatic closing doors mod again for these makes life an awful lot easier, since we're running around closing them have to be all the time. So we'll close this area off, and we'll have space for the turret back there, and a few bits and pieces of ammunition and sort of maintenance equipment as well, which will be good. And there we go. Nice and simple. So over to the other side, we're going to start working on dividing it up into sort of living spaces. I use the term loosely. I've used a couple of junk fences, despite the shortcomings of them. In this case I end up repositioning from my original plan, but we're down on the main platform here because the ceiling's a little bit higher and it makes it a bit easier to rug glitch. This one actually went okay. Some of the subsequent ones were a bit more problematic, to say the least. So, grab that with a pillow, and we'll move it into place. So I'm trying to line up the edges of the junk fence with the walls here, make it look like it's sort of nailed to the front of the wall rather than clipping through. Which I think I managed for the most part. It's a bit fiddly to do. There we go. So unfortunately there's a bit of a running theme that we can sort of see there. The pipes on the ceiling end up clipping through quite a lot of the junk fences and stuff, which is somewhat unavoidable. We also encounter this little problem. This fence, which I used because it's got much narrower legs on it, won't go onto the rug properly, so it's a case of lifting the rug up, which makes using this platform a lot more viable. Or a lot more viable an option, I should say, rather. There we go. Move that into place next to the initial cover-up job on the gore bag there. There we go. As you can see, that's really clipping through far too much, so we'll nudge it down a fair bit, which has the added bonus of meaning the legs stick out less, so always a good thing. And we'll get some doors put on. I've used junk wall doorways for this because they actually they don't have the little roof on the top of them, and they're less chunky, so they'll fit in much better. So in hindsight, I might have to take one of them out and use... There's a bank vault door, I think it is. That might be a better bet for the main entrance, but I shall have to test it and find out. This one, I've moved a little further forward because that little alcove is very, very small. I also can't get rid of that bench in there either, or the door. So I've pulled it right up against the doorway on the right there so that we've got a bit more room, which is the corridors don't need to be particularly wide. We'll board that off later. So, over this side I wanted a sort of checkpoint or guard post. Seems like a sensible thing to have at the entrance. Sort of thing they have in Metro as well. So we're looking at here a couple of new mods I've picked up. They're not particularly new, and in fact no Respawns has been using them for a while. I wanted a little more variety to build with for a change, so this is which one is it? Junk Wall Collection, I think. I'll add them into the mod list later on, which hopefully will be by the time that you're watching this video. It puts a number of different walls in there, a number of different junk walls. This is quite handy for building guard posts. It's a windowed wall with no glass in it, which is another cool thing. Some of those walls actually do have glass in them, which I have mixed feelings on, if I'm honest, since there isn't much glass in the game, unsurprisingly, after nuclear war. So I wanted to close this area off just so it feels a little more secure and more like a room rather than just an alcove or an open area. So, half wall in there, nice and easy. And that's the job done. This would be another example of the shortcomings of using Workbench anywhere. I can't get rid of all that trash. I probably could work around it and use the space. I didn't really like the way it looks. Anybody who was actually living there would just, pick up a shovel, basically, and clean it out. At least I imagine they would. As soon as I can't do that, I'm just going to wall it off. Hopefully make the place look a little more transformed anyway. So, this is one of the regular shack walls, but uses panels rather than planks, so I wanted to use that instead. I've already used it once, so I flipped it around and used the back of it this time. And these are the regular snappable half walls, which was very conveniently sit quite close together, just to mix and match the textures a little bit. We're going to go on a bit of an angle across this bit of sticking out trash and dirt and whatever that is down there. Let's get those lined up. And group selected to place. Slight error there, that it's clipping through the light, but just grabbed it with group select, moved everything back, and then redid the end wall. Unfortunately that moved too far back as well. But it's an easy fix. So, another useful thing to be aware of, in these archways where they've got the metal rim to it, you can't sink anything in, so I had to do a couple of attempts to get that particular wall in. Close the gap, and we're going to use this one to add a little bit more texture and to seal the gap between the two existing panels there. Fortunately we can line up the horizontal boards quite well, and there we go. Nice and scrappy. So, that's the building done on this area. We've decorated. The other mod I've picked up in the meanwhile is Posters of the Commonwealth, which just gives exactly what it says on the tin really, extra wall decorations, so we can add a little bit more variety in there. There's our turret peeking out. A security door there, because as I say, I did want it to look pretty secure. Could fit the bank vault door in for this one, I probably will, but it may not cooperate. We'll see which way it opens and so on. There's a little guard station. For the final tour, I'll probably put some settlers in or guards in, but as always with Workbench anywhere, we can't assign settlers here, so I'll have to improvise. A rough and ready door on this little venue. I've also... oh wait, yeah, there's a third mod. Makeshift furniture pack. There's another mod I've grabbed, which is where the table on the right here comes from. For other bits and pieces as well. The table and sleeping bag combo is actually a group select job that I've done myself. And there's a sleeping mat from USO, I think it's from USO, that's tucked under that sofa as well, so hopefully that would work as a bed as well. I didn't really get the chance to test it, unfortunately. So, I was having a bit of issues with getting doors on here, I think because the other wall is just too close, I couldn't snap it on. So, this fellow has a curtain, and a very makeshift bed, a bit rough and ready, I guess it's the ultimate, or possibly the polar opposite of the ultimate bachelor pad. Because again of the trash on the floor and the fact I couldn't shift the bench, I thought let's make a better work area so they can maintain their weapons and equipment. A few magazines to read while you're waiting for access to the bathroom. Fortunately there's a gore bag over the bathroom there that I can get rid of either, so I've walled that off and put in a makeshift commode, I suppose would be a good word for that. I thought the sign seemed appropriate. There's another one from the makeshift furniture pack. As I say, I'll put these mods in the mods list for you if you want to look them up. No Respawns has used them a few times, and I didn't want to overdo them, but I wanted to add a little bit more variety in, so we've expanded our selection. I've put a few posters in the existing frames as well, using Posters of the Commonwealth, which is easier said than done, but largely because they don't quite fit, but we managed. A little workstation there for them. Did I not put a chair there? That was an oversight. And our little maintenance area and ammo storage for the turret. Realise that barrel looks a little unstable with the turret on the top, but You gotta make do. This is post-nuclear Boston after all. I think I've got plans for a market area and probably a kind of bar, sort of vaguely third raily, but kind of probably not at the same time. Yes, in Metro, you can't really go up onto the surface without using a gas mask, because the radiation is much more intense and much more of a problem than it is in Fallout, which is what those signs there are alluding to. So I will jump back in, I think, and have another bit more of a playthrough of that this week as well. For now, thanks for watching, do hope you enjoyed. I will be speaking to you all very, very soon.